We've got Paul McBeth versus Calvin Heimburg at the Jonesboro Open. These two battled for the win in 2020, with Calvin Heimburg claiming the title. This year, tied going into the last hole, Paul put the pressure on Calvin on back-to-back clutch shots. We'll break down how Calvin Heimburg got the best of Paul McBeth yet again, including a sprinkle of controversy. Paul teed off first on hole 18, which is playing as the third hardest hole at Disc Side of Heaven with a mere 14% birdie rate. This near-perfect tee shot gives Paul an approach to the basket and puts the pressure squarely on Calvin to get aggressive off the tee. Turning to his flippy, swirly Star Destroyer, Calvin knows that it's birdie or bust. He throws a hyzer toward the left side of the gap, and as his disc turns, he continues to stay clean, ultimately besting the shot by McBeth and putting himself 250 feet from the basket. Take a look at the height difference between these two shots. By throwing his disc higher and embracing the added risk of hitting a tree branch, Calvin was able to gain an extra 75 to 100 feet on his shot. This challenging fairway requires a relatively straight line to be held for most of the shot, and Calvin threads it through, setting himself up in the preferred left side of the fairway. After an errant tee shot from Kevin Jones, it becomes clear that this tournament is coming down to Paul and Calvin. Now trading punches, Paul puts an ESP Onyx on a hyzer out over the out of bounds. With it checking up within the bullseye, the pressure is back on Calvin, who turns to his champion Rhino for the approach. Knowing it will land softly, Calvin commits to his shot, floating the disc just past the basket where it settles 18 feet from the pin, giving himself a look at birdie. This putt, along with McBeth's birdie, would send them into a sudden death playoff for the championship. As the players make their way over to the tee pad of hole 1 for the first playoff hole, Paul McBeth is up to throw first. Reaching for his ESP Force, Paul never gets the disc turned over, putting himself well off target to the left at the edge of the tree line, well outside of putting range. While many assume that this was just an uncharacteristic shank from McBeth, he clarified what happened with an Instagram post in which he detailed his frustration, battling and finding a way to claw back and force the playoff just to have the tee pad rip off the ground and scrunch up, causing an extremely errant throw. Upon further inspection, this tee pad didn't look to be firmly secure at the front left corner. Here's Kevin Jones from the final round, who looked to have the rotation of his right foot affected by the loose fabric. And earlier that day, even though he parked this shot next to the basket, Paul McBeth dealt with the same issue. But on the playoff hole, the problem appeared to be the worst we had seen that day, with Paul's foot getting caught and not being allowed to rotate freely. With Paul seemingly still in position to salvage his par, Calvin needed to hit a birdie to end the playoff, and hole 1 has the second lowest birdie rate of any hole at Disc Side of Heaven. Choosing one of his more overstable Halo Destroyers, Calvin unleashes straight at the basket. The perfect moment for the perfect shot. Let's take a look at Calvin's technique on this shot. As Calvin gets into this position with the disc extended back, he keeps his shoulders angled down towards the left. This, in combination with keeping his head down, helps him get the hyzer release of the disc that he wants. Calvin is known for really putting his weight towards the outside of his right foot as he plants and rotates his hips through. While it's an extreme example of this technique, by pushing into the ground this way, he has properly braced his foot, which ensures that the power generated with his lower body gets transferred into the disc through his hips. Now for the long walk down the fairway, and McBeth is throwing next. With Paul unable to connect on his approach, Calvin taps in his putt to become the 2022 Jonesboro Open champion. Hey, there's over 9,000 of you who have watched our videos more than once and still aren't subscribed. Show us a little love. It's free.